an attempt to assess, diagnose, or treat any mental health or illness condition. Please consult your physician, psychiatrist, or psychotherapist for personal matters.
Inner Voice, a heartfelt chat with Dr. Foojan.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Inner Voice Show. I'm Dr. Foojan Zain. I'm a psychotherapist and the author of and the originator of the Awareness Integration Theory. Hello to Sean, our director in the studio. This is a show about what matters most in our life, our minds, our thoughts, feelings, actions, relationships, and our fulfillment in this beautiful journey of life. So today I will share with you the tip of the week about love and how our expectations either elevates or reduces our love and what we can do to create and generate it for ourselves. Then I will share with you how to trust your inner voice or intuition in the Ask Me segment. I'll bring you the latest research about intuition or tacit knowledge being difficult to measure. So it's kind of like often denigrated. But this study shows that there's a neurobiological explanation of how experience-based knowledge is created. And in this research, it calls intuition an experience-based knowledge. Then I will definitely bring you someone who's going to talk about intuition completely from another place. I bring you Wendy Rosa. She's the author of Becoming an Empowered Empath. The founder of the School of Intuitive Studies. She's been helping empaths develop intuition and experience personal transformation for over 2 decades. Wendy's a popular faculty member at the Shift Network and has filmed 2 programs for Mind Valley's Spiritual Growth Channel. And we had an amazing conversation, and I'm positive you're going to talk and you're going to enjoy it. So first, this is the tip of the week. Dr. Foojan Zain here with the tip of the week. There's an interesting notion about love. Have you noticed we can love God, poetry, babies, pets, and perhaps even our shoes? I love my shoes. With the highest level of affection with no expectation. It can be personal and we can be attached, but there's no expectation of a return. It is a generous experience of warmth and connection that is assigned to someone or something or some category out there. As we assign the object of our affection out there, we create and generate pleasure for ourselves. We do this also at the beginning of our relationships with people and our mates. We assign good virtues and fantasy of greatness to them, and we enjoy our own experience within our sweet fantasy of experiencing love. So what happens in relationships when there are expectations of reciprocal actions from another person? Well, resentment, definitely. I've seen very religious people who had assigned only love to God to turn when it became personal after they got sick or lost someone near to them. The expectation was for God to return the favor, and when the protection was not offered, they got hurt and abandoned their belief. I also have been a witness to parents who raise their children with the hopes of a reciprocal affection. When their child does not do what they want them to do, they punish them harshly and they take away their love and kindness. In intimate relationships and marriages, the honeymoon phase can turn into a power struggle phase and divorce if love is not reciprocated in a particular way. So, is it the expectation that kills love? But don't we have to operate on some expectation within our relationships? Well, for sure. Every relationship operates based on some reciprocal transaction. The problem becomes when the relationship rules have not been talked about, addressed, nor negotiated. Most people operate from a bunch of preset rules and expectations that they assume the other party already knows and expected. Then there's a rude awakening. Whoops, the other person already had their own preset rules that they were holding us responsible for and are scolding us for not doing it their way. But wait. It was supposed to be my rules. I should be scolding them. Their audacity, right? Even when it comes to God, we form our beliefs and expectations based on our religious teachings. When God becomes personal, then we expect personal rewards or punishments. And if we were good and held our end of the bargain, well, then we expect personal care, even from God. Does this mean that love can only uphold if our expectations are fulfilled? Well, no. Love can be upheld no matter what if we stop attaching personal expectations to it. We can love with no attachment to the result. We can experience joy, respect, acceptance, kindness, good wishes for the others, regardless of their reciprocation. We can even choose not to be with someone in a particular relationship because we can't agree on the parameters of the relationship or what is expected of each other and continue to love them. We can get a divorce and choose to love our ex. We can choose to love our siblings, but not hang out. We can love our friends and not want to do business with them. Love is yours to experience freely with no attachment. You can choose to form attachments, form expectations, communicate your needs and desire, form structures, and get agreements as extra elements that are needed for a healthy relationship. So, love, because it's joyous, because it feels good, because it's your essence. Thank you. Dr. Foojan Zain, and this is the Ask Me segment. This is where you ask me a question about yourself. And here's my chance to share with you. So the question is, when I have an intuition that shows up for me, I have a hunch. For example, in a relationship, I have a hunch about what the other person's intention might be, or the other person wants something from me, or the way that their communication is, it seems like they're manipulating me, or I have dreams about something and I'm like, I know it, but how can I trust it? Because sometimes I've gone to the place of thinking that I know it, and definitely that's the truth, but when I went in and checked, it wasn't. So how can I trust my intuition? Well, how can you trust your intuition? Intuition is an information that shows up for you. Now, some people think that this intuition is an information that shows up from outside of ourselves and not inside of ourselves. And we could really look at that. And there's also information that shows up based on your own knowledge. So for example, because you are with a person, because of the history you've had with a person, because of your own fears or your wishes, or when you are with them and you're kind of like, you're really fast paced, analyzing their way of their body language, their way of putting the information together, or the way they're talking to you. So you're projecting and assuming a lot of different things about that person also. Now, these assumptions and projections can be intuitive because you've gained the information and it is inside of you, or it could be that it is your assumption and your projection. And that based on your own past history, based on your traumas, based on the things you've known, that you might have a negative concept about it. So that you would look at them and you would assume that they don't like you or they want to manipulate you, and you'll go into this hypervigilant stuff, place in yourself where you want to protect yourself, and you have every right. So whether this information shows up as an intuitive concept, as if it's your sixth sense that is getting the information from externally, an outside source, or that you're getting this information because you're observing something, but it's happening so fast that this observation does not appear like you're going through a conscious observation, but that is because of all the data that you're consistently getting and based on your own history with that person. Or these type of scenarios, for example, in work scenarios or in relationship scenarios, or the past history that you have, you're coming up with some, assumptions. Well, how can you trust it? Maybe do reality check. Maybe ask other people if they see the same thing about the other person. Maybe ask the other person themselves. This is somehow, a feeling that I have, a hunch that I have. Is that true? And let them know that this is only an experience that you're having, and you're attempting to do a reality check with them, because if you wanted to act and create another like layer of a bond with them, you want to go into partnership with them, you want to do some sort of a transaction, that you need to be able to do reality check with people to find out what the basis is. If you're feeling threatened by a person, where your hunch and your intuition is saying, be careful, then you might want to protect yourself and have those types of conversation. Maybe it's how to formulate your questions toward them. Maybe is ask about them from the relatives and families and other people at work, in order to gain more information that are more like objectively out there for you, as if you need some evidence. And then having those types of evidence in combination of your emotions and feelings, then bring them together and see how is it that you can move forward, be clear with communication and intention, and find your space where your internal process with the external process kind of matches, so you can trust what shows up internally to match what the relationship looks like externally. If you have some intuitions that show up for you, but they're not coming through externally, you have a hunch about something where you thought, oh my God, this person is upset with me, or they don't like me, or they want to manipulate me. And then you go in and that's just not the case. I would suggest for you to look at internal processes. What's going on? Where your fears are coming? Are there still traumas or issues that you haven't really handled from your past, and it keeps coming up? In order to do a knock, you got to take care of me, because I'm going to see the world through the filter and through the eyes that the world is going to harm me, or is not going to be a safe place for me. So it's important for you to listen to the voice that is coming from inside of you, whether it is through a sixth sense, that is an information showing up, if it's through some of the neuroses you have because of unfinished businesses that you've had from the past, you haven't cleared up. So the voice is constantly coming to tell you, I need to be taken care of. So listen to it and trust it. After you trust that, now you need to also match it with the reality out there. And that happens with your clear intention and communication. Ask the right questions, observe in a way that you can get the answers to your questions. Go to the source, go to the person that you have these objections or assumptions or projections to. Ask them the questions that you need in order to fulfill the need that you have. And if you're still feeling feeling not safe with the other people, make sure that in your interactions and transactions, you do the things to protect yourself if you still need to have those type of interactions with that particular person. If you don't need to, and there are people who are just like, I just can't feel safe, and if you don't need to be in that relationship, then you might want to look at maybe not being in that relationship if it's a relationship that keeps making you feeling unsafe. If you feel unsafe with most of people, then you need to take care of yourself and find ways of feeling the power from inside and feeling the safety from inside, and learning ways to set boundaries with people, with your communication and your strength. So trust yourself and learn the boundaries and learn skills in how to take care of yourself all the time. Thank you. Well, here's the research about intuition or tacit knowledge. It's difficult to measure, so it is often denigrated. A new dissertation in education research done in the Linköping University in Sweden shows that there is a neurobiological explanation for how experience-based knowledge is created. In studies from the 1980s on nurses, it was shown that those who had been in the profession for a long time saw more and made better judgments more quickly. It was referred to as an intuitive ability. In the 1990s, similar studies were done on physicians and business people with similar results. The fact that people with a long experience are often better at what they do, the practice makes perfect, is nothing new. But no good explanations have been put forward as to why this is the case. A few years ago, neuroscientists discovered that the human brain has dual system for receiving and analyzing sensory impressions, one conscious and one unconscious. In the unconscious, that is the non-declarative system, our sensory impressions are compared with previously stored images. We all have an inner picture book of stored experiences based on what has happened to us previously in life. We also remember the outcome. Did it end well or badly? With the aid of these stored sensory impressions, we unconsciously assess the situation at hand and can predict the outcomes. This capacity is especially helpful in complex and information-rich situations with a great deal of noise. The more variations of the situation we have experienced, the richer our picture book will be, and the more probable it will be that we recognize the situation at hand. It can be a matter of smell, gesture, and ineffable combination of impressions that makes what we call intuition tell us something. We have a memory that needs to be filled up with the sensory impressions. However, these memories are stored only if they affect us emotionally. In other words, for experience to be built up, there must be a commitment. This means that we can never read or calculate our way to all knowledge and abilities we need in our professional life. Practical experiences is indispensable and needs to be reevaluated. An uncertified teacher with 10 years of experience in the profession can be a much better teacher, maybe assuming that this person is committed to their job, than a newly certified teacher, no matter how knowledgeable he or she is in terms of subject matter knowledge. Now, researchers also argue that components involving practice and lab work need to be expanded rather than cut in professional programs for engineers, teachers, and physicians. We need to see, feel, smell, hear, taste, and experience with our senses. This collection of data can't be replaced by studying course literature. Experience is under-evaluated, and this is perhaps because we haven't understood this type of tacit knowledge. Now we know, thanks to our brain researchers. So this research in Sweden pretty much looks at this as we gather data, we have it inside, and the more that we gather data with all of our five senses and they're stored, obviously we can, our brain projects, and that type of projection, as it has all of the data and the memory together, it shows up to us as information that is coming to us, not only because we see it, but it's because in our memory and the way that our brain works, that the information shows up. That's one way of looking at it. And we're going to look at intuition from all different perspectives. So don't go anywhere.
Have you ever wished you could just wake up one day, reach across your nightstand, and hit the life reset button? Let's face it, the struggles and frustrations of everyday life leave millions of women and men around the globe yearning for a new way. And the new way is right here in Life Reset, the awareness integration path to create the life you want by Dr. Foojan Zain. You can get it now at Foojan.com or Amazon.com. Life Reset, the awareness integration path to create the life you want. You deserve it.
Take KMET 1490 AM with you everywhere you go by downloading our free smartphone apps found on the KMET website, KMET1490am.com. You can also go to the Google Play Store or the Apple App Store on your phone to download the free app. Now you can listen live or play any of your favorite programmers' podcasts using your smartphone. Go to KMET1490am.com and download your free phone app today.
Join the conversation every Monday afternoon at 3 p.m. Pacific for Inner Voice Heartfelt Chat with Dr. Foojan. Dr. Foojan is a radio and TV host, international speaker, psychotherapist, life coach, and the author of Life Reset, the awareness path to create the life you want. She brings you the latest research and interviews with experts in the field of cognitive sciences. Anyone who loves to grow and create growth for humanity gets a voice on this call-in show. Inner Voice Heartfelt Chat with Dr. Foojan. Monday afternoons at 3 p.m. Pacific on Smart Talk KMET 1490 AM and on KMET1490am.com.
Hello, everyone. Again, this is Dr. Foojan, and I am excited to have Wendy, the Rosa, with me. She is the author of Becoming Empowered Empath, the founder of the School of Intuitive Studies. She's been helping empaths develop intuition and experience of personal transformation for over 2 decades. Wendy is a popular faculty member at the Shift Network and has filmed 2 programs for Mind Valley Spiritual Growth Channel, and you can find her at schoolofintuitivestudies.com. Welcome to the show, Wendy.
Thank you, Dr. Foojan. It's an honor to be here.
Wendy, so let's talk about empath. I think is one of those words that many people might not know what it is. And then I also think that we might get it confused with energy healing or clairvoyant, clairaudient. It's just there's a way that we experience gaining information and we not necessarily knowing what to do with that information. So when you say empath in your book, can you share what you mean by that?
Sure. So an empath is someone who feels the energy of others through their sentient body. They may also feel the energy within an environment. A little different than maybe somebody who sees clairvoyantly or hears clairaudiently. The empathic sense specifically relates to clairsentience. It relates to the sensing and feeling of energy.
So when you talk about energy, can you define what energy means to you? When we look at energy from physics, it's different than we would talk about, sensing energy from people or experiencing our energy. Sometimes when in a mundane level, when we talk about our energy, people think about the intensity of whether they have kind of like the energy to do something. Versus, I'm assuming you're also talking about another type of energy. So can you share with us about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are vibratory beings. We are made of energy, and our energy makes up the consciousness of our cells. So our cells carry energy. And on a deeper level, this is how I work with it is that we, as souls, come into this body. We are vibratory in our energy. We carry with us information. That information makes up our energetic anatomy, which includes our chakras and our meridians in our body and the auric field around us. That's all part of our energetic anatomy, which we don't always learn about. We don't really learn about in school. But the energetic anatomy underlays the nervous system and the physical body. So the energy we come into this world with, or the energetic experience we might have through the cells of our body, are imprinted upon our physical body. And oftentimes we will also feel the vibratory or energetic experience of someone else's energy.
So when we gain other people's energy and to feel their feelings, let me share with you as if like, you sit with people, and I've done that obviously in my sessions a lot, where someone would come in that they're angry or upset, pained, and then there's an experience that you have about gaining their energy and kind of like even feeling it in your own body. Is that what you're talking about when you talk about an empath, which would be different than someone who receives the different type of energy from the outside world?
Yeah, absolutely. So someone who is empathic, it's interesting because people who have heard the word empath and recognize themselves as empaths might say, I'm an empath, therefore I take on the energy of others. But the true nature of an empath is someone who feels the energy of others, but they're having an experience called overly empathic or overly sensitive. And what that basically means is, in my energy body, I'm sitting with an individual or I'm talking with an individual out in the world, wherever, and their energy crosses into my field, meaning we don't just end at the skin. We end, they say in yogic study, 10 and a half fingers length from the sternum from the heart is our auric field. So 12 to 18 inches outside our body. So we have that field around us. And so energy will cross into that field. And when it crosses into the field, we feel it energetically, empathically, maybe emotionally in our body. And that overly empathic experience, is typically happens because there is ultimately a sort of a pattern that's going on in the lower half of the body energetically, where we have these very powerful power centers in the first, second, and third chakras of our body, so waist down. And those power centers relate to how we are going to be in the world. And they also relate to the empath's experience. And so I can say more about this, but ultimately what happens is when our lower chakras are carrying an excessive amount of energy or history, we end up very easily becoming overly empathic, meaning energy crosses into our field because we're holding a lot of energy in the lower body. Our spirit lifts up higher in our upper body, and we sort of disconnect from the lower chakras, and energy ends up sort of transferring into our body. There's more going on here that I can also go into.
When you say that we get over activated in the lower chakras, how do we get over activated? So first, before we do that, can you explain a little bit about the chakras for our audience to know what are these energy centers, and then what's the difference between the upper and lower? So then we'll go into how does one get overcharged in one type of chakra?
Sure, absolutely. So the chakras are power centers in our body, and what I address are the 7 spinal chakras, one of which is at the crown of the head. And they carry information about our soul and about what we're going to be manifesting here in this life, meaning our gifts, our abilities, our power, our affect. They also carry wounds and what we've either come into this world with or we've experienced in this lifetime that might imprint energetically upon the chakras and in our physical and energetic body. So we have these power centers, and we have upper chakras, which very much relate to the I call them the upper clairs, the clairvoyant, the clairaudient. Sometimes it's the claircognizant, the knowing sense, which some people will feel in their heart. Some people will feel lower in the body. So that one also is upper and lower. But the upper clairs are more about the divine information, the higher knowing that comes through. The lower clairs, which is the clairsentient and also the claircognizant, has to do with feeling energy on a horizontal level in the world. The claircognizant is the knowing sense. So I know because I know because I know, and I can't tell you why I know. I just know. That's that knowing sense. But the feeling sense in the body, the clairsentience, that's the empath. And what happens here is this is the sort of the profile of why an empath might end up sort of chronically losing boundaries and feeling this energy transference with the world. So here's what happens is that in the root chakra area of the body, it's at our tailbone, and it's the power center for our safety, our attachment here on this planet. It carries a wealth of information about our early childhood bonding and attachment, including the childhood marinade that we grew up in. Like what was going on at that time period, 0 to 7 years old, and how did I develop bonding, attachment, safety, belonging, survival, my sense of self, at those early ages. Well, we're in a world where no one was talking about empaths, 50 years ago, 40 years ago, six, maybe not even 10 years ago in some, most circles. So nobody's saying to children very early on, honey, that's mommy's energy, that's daddy's energy. That's not your responsibility. It's your job to be a child. Or, instead, a lot of conditioning in the greater system influencing our family systems included things like children are meant to be seen, not heard, or we keep secrets in this house, or don't talk about our feelings, or we can't afford that, meaning you're not worthy of it. I mean, we can go down the list of all of these internalizations of what we as children developed as sensitive beings very early on. So what happens to the little empathic child? They're soaking up all this information, and ultimately the root chakra area of the body, our power center for safety and sense of self and belonging and trust and and grounding and being okay with who I am, all of a sudden that root chakra contracts and says, there is no way that I can be me in this space. I've got to have another operating system kick in. This isn't conscious, obviously. So the root chakra contracts, and then the spirit, our little spirits, sort of elevate a little higher in the body. And we do that to survive the environment. Well, when the soul starts to move up a little bit and disconnect from this contraction at the root chakra, where there's no sense of safety and belonging going on, then the second chakra, which is the empathic power center of the body, blows open. And it blows open in order to compensate for the closed down root chakra. It's like a way to protect in the body. Well, that blowing open, it basically shifts consciousness away from self and into hypervigilance. I have to pay attention to everything that's going on outside of me. My alert needs to be on. I need to take the temperature of everyone else's behaviors and mannerisms and emotional needs so I know how to negotiate space with what's going on and take care of myself. Well, what that has me do is disconnect from my emotional needs. I end up not feeling valid in my emotions, not really being okay and having my emotions, feeling a lot of shame about my authentic sense of self and my feelings. And I disconnect from my needs on an emotional level and I prioritize the outer experience of what is going on around them. Well, when we do that, when that happens, there is in a split second, that's when energy transfers into the body. The second I go into fight, flight, or freeze, oh, someone's having an emotion. My body remembers, stop here. This is all happening in a nanosecond. Stop, pay attention. Somebody's having an emotion. My body goes into contraction. There's feelings outside of me. Someone's angry. Oh no. And in that moment, I'm regressing to childhood of I got to do something. Something's not okay here. In that second, that's where energy transfer happens. And we start to absorb that energy, that anger into our own being. And we disconnect from our own feelings in our own true sense of self. I mean, ultimately, we're in a coping mechanism at that point. That pattern recreates itself through our life as empaths. Anytime we engage with energy that feels in some way like it mirrors the family system, or it triggers some particular feeling of threat around emotions. Now, I'll say this before I conclude on this piece, which is that the anecdote, so to speak, is that the empath learns how to feel their feelings. And that's how we start to discern our emotions compared to someone else's emotions. So if I start to let myself have my anger and lower body anger, I mean deep down there anger, or my shame or my grief or whatever it is, I let myself have those feelings and I let go of the shame of having them or the parenting that they're wrong, then I have increased my emotional capacity to be able to hold space for someone having their emotions in their body, not in my auric field.
So what I'm hearing from you is that being empathic is a bit different than just receiving information, because there's a way of receiving information, whether like you were saying with the higher chakras, to receive information in a way that we know it's an external information, it isn't about me, or even receiving everybody else information about everybody else's emotions and still knowing it isn't about me, it is about them. But what I hear from you is when you're an empath, what happens is that you receive their emotion as if it's yours, and then you become hypervigilant and within your own system as a coping mechanism. So you go in an overdrive in a sense. And that's why it is important for you to be able to kind of clear what is others' information, to really get to know what is yours and the distinction between your information and external information, to be able to deal with the external world as the external world versus having it be always in a mode of a threat or hypervigilance, or I have to protect myself about this, or even receive it and react to it as if it's in your own body. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes, absolutely. And maybe one way to think about it is that, because this is what happens for empowered empaths who can receive information and not take it on, which is that it is a split between the upper body and the lower body. So the upper body can receive can be present and have empathy for someone in a situation. And we can call that maybe the adult self or the high functioning part of us. The inner child, the younger consciousness in our body, the historic consciousness in our body is in the lower chakras. That's the one, that's the part that's saying, I have to take this on. That's the part of us that goes into a bit of a regression in that moment, and we lose our boundaries because it's not the upper body knows better, the adult self knows better, but it's the younger consciousness in us that is in a pattern that it hasn't exactly shifted out of. So the ways when we talk about the chakras and why they're so important is because historically we have been shamed out of our lower body. We have been told it's dirty. We have been told we are bad and wrong. We have been, women in particular, or the feminine, whether it's in men, women, all genders, has been shamed. I mean, we've been taught to negate the lower half of our body. And so it becomes a part of us that becomes out of control. We're not in control of it. It's just operating on its woundology. And not 100% for everybody, but for empaths, this can be the profile that's happening. And so what we end up working with here is, how do I deeply embody and come down into these lower power centers and reclaim my sense of safety in my root chakra? No one thinks about the root chakra because it's not a feeling power center, but it's a database of cellular consciousness for the entire body. And so it carries so much information. So if we start to come down in our mind's eye, in our thoughts and our feelings, just come down into the lower body and even say to this little unfurling flower there, like it's safe to open up. I'm going to now connect here and claim my safety. And that we start to release wounds. The second chakra becomes a place in the body where so much of our relationship wounds, our relationship energy transfers. So we got to get that stuff out. It's like, how do we just let everybody, I'm sending everybody back to themselves. And we can do that by literally intending and closing our eyes, tuning into this area of the body and saying, everybody, no matter how much I love you or don't, you have to go. It's time to go out of this area. And I need to take up this space in my body. I need to reconnect with the subtle, the feminine, the power, the subtle power that lives in this area of my body. And I need to trust my intuition here. And this is how we can start to sort of, take up space, embody, and have more presence, so that we have more of ourselves, more of our radiance, and really sort of the foundation for our boundaries.
In your book, you talk about also grounding and how to create the healing for these lower chakras. Can you share a little bit about how to do that? What are some of the suggestions for healing?
Yeah,
so that people know what you're going to be, what the gist of it is, so that they want to go and get more from your book. I think you have a lot of great tools in your book for people.
Absolutely. There's actually also meditations in the book. So what I'll say is an exercise to work with, but when you get the book, there's actually meditations that guide you through the process that you can listen to. So essentially, grounding is the process of connection to the earth's frequency. It's innate healing capacity. It's biocurrents. And we do that usually through the soles of the feet or just through our sentient body, like being in nature. Energetically, I like to imagine a grounding cord, which is more like, instead of a skinny cord from the tailbone into the earth, it's actually a wider image. It's more like a tree trunk that secures itself from the sides of our hips, low belly, low spine, sort of hugging the pelvic bowl, like wearing a pair of pants. And then extending that image down deep into the earth and allowing it to sprout roots. Now I'm talking that through, But when we really take the time to visualize it and to feel into it, what it does is it takes all the energy that by default moves up in our body, sort of to function in the world. We need our brain, we need the front body, we need our heart. It allows that energy to now come down from the upper body through the heart center and essentially share it with the rest of our chakra system and the rest of our physical body. So we start to let it come down into our legs, into our feet. And that power of just simply grounding brings our chakra system into alignment. And it also calms the mind. It'll slow down our breath. It'll calm the heart. Any emotions that might be accelerated, it will start to bring them into peace and into centering and balance. And also it will help our intuition. It's very difficult to, trust our intuition, or even sometimes hear, feel, sense, or see our intuition if we're highly accelerated in the upper body and spinning a bit. That grounding process allows us to really tune in more into our bodies.
You just said the word, trusting your intuition. That is one of those things that is very interesting, where intuition shows up as an information, as if it's, not only we have our five senses that we pick up data from the external world on a conscious level. Intuition has usually showed up as this felt sense, which is there's information coming that I don't necessarily get with tangible reality concept. I can't see it necessarily. I can't hear it necessarily, but it's the kind of like the knowing that shows up for me, and we call intuition. And when you said, trusting, then I also get a lot of people who say, well, I have a feeling, I just can't pinpoint it. I can't show it to you, and I don't know how to trust it, whether this information is accurate or not. And you can see that in a lot of the relatedness. You can see people about, what their vision is about their own life in the future, or, a future of a type of a relationship. What are your suggestions in distinctions and distinguishing between what is, how they can trust it?
Yeah. Our intuition is the light of our soul, or the consciousness of our soul communicating through our body. So again, some people see, some people feel, some people hear, some people know, some people get taste, some people get smells. There's different ways that our soul is communicating to us. It's a relationship. It's like a friend. Our friends aren't going to trust us right off the bat if we have not, shown up for our friends, meaning if we haven't developed that relationship. So if we think about it as a part of us that we do need to check in with, start to listen to, start to pay attention to, maybe it takes some time. It might not be quick, but I do encourage listening to your intuition, and maybe even journaling or writing down what's coming through. How we trust our intuition sometimes is twofold. One is sometimes we really do need outer validation. We really do need evidence. I had this intuitive sense, and oh my goodness, this happened. I felt it, I saw it, I knew it, I knew that was going to happen. That is validation. That's external evidence that our intuition is working. Now, the question is, how many external evidences do we need in our lives to finally trust that, there's divine wisdom and intelligence inside us that is valid. So, sometimes we do need that evidence to validate. Sometimes the voice of fear can be intuition. Don't do that. That's not okay. And sometimes our body responds through anxiety. It's like, I can't tell if I should make this decision because all I have is anxiety about it. In those cases, that anxiety is information. It's telling us something. Can we slow down, ground ourselves, let the body settle, and see if there's information coming through in a different way, a voice, a picture, an image. Can we journal it? I always would say this to my students is that our intuition, sometimes when it comes in through the upper body, meaning it's a picture, it's an image, it's a download, it's a sound, it's something, it's a higher knowing. We do need to ground it. And sometimes we ground it by letting it roll out, letting the process roll out. Sometimes we ground it by journaling. Sometimes we ground it by tuning in lower in our body and asking our lower body, what does this upper body intuition mean? What is it saying? What do I need to know about this? Meaning, or you can ask our heart too. So yes, I mean, with intuition, we do need to kind of begin that relationship. Maybe it's not a beginning, it might be just a cultivation of learning and listening and seeing sort of it play out, and out of there our trust can develop even more.
So Wendy, in 1 minute, is there anything that we haven't touched upon, something that it's important for you, for our audience to know about your experience and your book?
Well, one I will say is that empaths, you really, when they feel and overfeel so much energy, it certainly can feel like a curse more than it can feel like a blessing. And while I can absolutely give you empathy for that, I will tell you that I truly believe that empaths are leading the way in our new realm of consciousness, is what I'll call it, this new world. Partly because we've been so disconnected from the powers of the empath, which are, vulnerability and authenticity and being in our truth and being able to express our emotions. And empaths are really leading the way through that modeling, through their own creative process, through being able to space hold, being able to be vulnerable and have connected conversations and change the world through empathy. So I encourage you to continue to listen to your intuition and follow that inner voice, feeling, sound, however it works for you. Allow that to come through because it is guiding you in your direction in this life.
Thank you so much. Wendy Rosa, everyone. She is the author of Becoming an Empowered Empath. And you can find her at schoolofintuitivestudies.com. And where can they get your book?
You can get my book on my website, wendyderosa.com, or schoolofintuitivestudies.com, either one. It's also on a lot of online retailers. You can do a Google search and find one that feels good to you.
Yes, everyone, the book has a lot of meditation. It has tools for you that gives you a step-by-step guidance in not only knowing what is, but also how to handle and become an empowered empath instead of your body constantly reacting to the world's emotions. To be clear, to be strong, to be powerful with who you are. So thank you so much for spending the time with us, Wendy.
Thank you so much, Dr. Foojan.
And for all of you who are out there, create an amazing world for yourself and everyone around you. And until next week, take good care.